anytime you go into a new area, new technology, new world like this, obviously there's a lot of learning on their side, on our side, making this all work. And a lot that you don't know until you don't know it, and then you find out. And the next presentation will be a lot of, I didn't know that until I started doing this, and then we had to figure out how to make it work. So about 3 years ago, I remember sitting down with John Honeycutt and him telling me about his vision of moving Discovery to the cloud. And Rob Goldheim immediately ran over to me afterwards and said, what did you guys talk about? It's like, I can't tell you. He's your boss. He's got to tell you. But and then I alluded to it a few times here, and Melissa over there was biting her tongue so hard that I think she probably has blisters still from it or something. She couldn't talk about it either. But they've spent 3 years and working really hard to figure out how to actually make playout in the cloud really work and move an entire ecosystem to the cloud. And now they've done it, and they're going to tell us how they did it. And so Dan Turow from Evertz and Rob Goldheim from Discovery and our former manager are here to tell us how they made this all work. And I'm sure you will have a few questions at the end of this one, too.
Thanks very much. Actually, the AWS presentation that just preceded us was awesome because a lot of the questions that actually came up afterwards, I think we could talk to several of them in terms of how we actually did things like live and how we can actually operationalize AI and use it from multi-cloud and stuff like that. So hopefully we can connect the dots as we go through. Just want to talk a little bit about content supply chain because it actually does feed into the thing at the very end, which is actually delivery. The way we kind of approach it is very much to a large degree a left to right kind of process no matter what we say. We ingest content, we QC content, we mark up content, we schedule it, and we deliver it. That's actually what we do. What we do is when we focus on this whole process, we think about it, it has to be thought of as a factory. The way you're going to get operational efficiency and costs out of the system is if you think about it as a factory and you focus on capturing metadata all the way through each individual step so you can have workflow driven by metadata. That's how you get the efficiencies out of the system. Previous presentation talked about, well, how do we actually make this happen? How do we make the transition to a file-based workflow for efficiencies, whether it be in the cloud or on-prem? You think about what you want to do and you think about it as a factory and a workflow. So you come up and you have what we call BPMs, sitting down with the key stakeholder and say, what do we want to do? We want to ingest content. Then we want to record content and want to QC content and really map out what you want to do and extract the inefficiencies during that process. Really, really key. Those BPMNs end up being, I can't remember who was talking about, workflow state diagrams. That's what they end up actually looking like. As you walk through, say, I want to do this, this, and this, you end up with state diagrams. And the really key things from this is there's also third-party notifications that happen. So if you're talking to an ESB or a traffic system or whatever else, during your workflows, it's what you want to do, but it's also what you want to notify in terms of the third-party systems. Those diagrams end up being operationalized and presented in a workflow in the media asset management system or the automation system with very real diagrams. Like this is actually what the workflow is actually doing. You can see your queues and what the content is going through and how long it's taking and how big the files are and stuff like that. So the state diagrams, the BPMNs, get operationalized in a UI like that. And that's a very simple one. But as somebody else mentioned earlier on, they do end up being very complex. Although it's left to right takes a lot of little wiggles back and forth in terms of what you want to do, when you want to do it, how it's prioritized, and how the metadata actually drives the actual workflow. Talked a lot about third-party integrations. Doing a media asset management system or a content management system, there is no one monolithic solution that's going to do everything. Third-party integrations are really, really key. And that starts from the top on down. You've got multi-cloud, Azure, AWS, IBM at the very top layer. Then you have your traffic systems, whether it be Syntec or Wide Orbit or whatever else. On the ingest side, you've got auto QC tools like Serify, Baton, Pulsar. You've got transcoding that actually goes on, watermarking that happens, and then of course archiving as well. All these integrations are really, really key to making an efficient workflow because there is going to be best of breed in each individual spot. You've got to be able to leverage those. So another look on the content supply chain. There's acquire and edit, kind of prepare and approve, and then finally distribute. I'm going to talk a little bit about the acquire and edit because it feeds into some of the AI and the metadata stuff we were talking about earlier on. So you have a content portal, you have your auto QC tools, and you have your transcoding. Fine, those all fit into the workflows, all good. But when you talk about the edit side of that, you start talking about, okay, how am I going to actually do things that I need to do when I need to integrate with Premiere or integrate with Avid or whatever else? You have your storage, your OP1A MXF files, your Avid system where you do an OP1A to OP Atom conversion and back and forth. So there's content flow, but more importantly, there's metadata that makes the job more efficient for the editing staff. And that really goes from your MAM, your content supply chain, where you're doing markup for, hey, there's some profanity or some nudity or whatever else. How do I efficiently get that into my edit environment so the editors know what to do? It's the metadata that's really, really important and gets the efficiencies out of the system. So we talked about AI and cloud. There's a ton of stuff in here that you can actually start to use. There's face recognition, there's object recognition, there's speech to text, and also a bunch of tools around what we call standard and practices for nudity and profanity and stuff like that. So how do I get that metadata and actually use it? So in the previous presentation, we're talking about, well, what's the cost of doing this, right? Really the way we see it is say, you know what, you've got your media asset management system, your automation. What you want to send up to the cloud, whether it be Amazon, Google, or IBM, you can send up low bitrate proxies of your video and your audio at a very cheap cost, but get back very rich and valuable metadata from these AI tools. That's the trick, right? Send up lightweight stuff, but get valuable stuff back. And a lot of people talk about, if you talk about in the cloud, they call it the data lake. What is the data lake? It's all this AI stuff that comes back. And when you turn on these AI machines, actually, there's too much information that comes back. On a frame-by-frame basis, you can have megabytes of metadata. What do I do with all this? How do I visualize it? How do operations actually use all that stuff? So what we actually just say, okay, you know what? For this one is object recognition. All these things come back. There's furniture and bottle and camping and a couch and chair and stuff like that. If you want to search for chair and you want to have a confidence factor, say, I need to be 99% sure it's a chair before I spend the time with my eyeballs on that particular frame, you can have a slider and say, I want to have my confidence factor against matching a chair, slide this thing and do an index search in Elasticstore, for example, to get the actual data you want and hone in on it with a confidence factor, right? So you can do that with object recognition. You can do that with celebrity face recognition. If you're in a PAM type environment where you're looking for a particular shot of a particular person, confidence factor goes up or down based on actually what you actually want to get. And you can also do it for moderation, profanity and swearing and stuff like that. Run it through and say, okay, this is going to drive my editing process because there's bad word here, a bad word there, and those comments get transferred through to the edit system. S&P workflows for nudity and stuff like that, big thing for a lot of applications because what's acceptable in Germany or North America isn't acceptable in the Middle East. You want to be able to run that through with different confidence factors to look for, suggested things or male nudity or female nudity, whatever. These are things that are available in the AI engine. And again, those particular things get shown up in the same type of UI. So you can increase and decrease your confidence factor by searching your data link in Elasticstore very, very simply. And if you do it right, you can have all that metadata in a single timeline view with operations I'm very, very familiar with. Here's my video track, here's my audio track, but here's all this extra metadata that I want to be able to integrate into the whole edit process. So just talking a little bit kind of more on the distribution side of things. When we talk about VOD, nonlinear deliveries, again, the key thing is it's got to be thought of as a factory. You want to have all this metadata that you collect, whether it be, first of all, with a metadata structure, brand, series, episode, material, feeding in with all this other metadata that you collect and actually input and validate in the system, put it through a machine to actually do all the transcoding and create your superset of metadata to deliver out to Netflix and iTunes and things like that. And we'll talk about that. So kind of moving on to the linear side. So I'm going to actually switch it over to Rob to actually give some flavor for why Discovery kind of went this particular route, what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, and I'll jump back in and talk a little bit about the technology as well.
Thank you, Dan.
Pointer, if you want it.
Sure. Thanks. So yes, Discovery has jumped in. So, well, first of all, I want to say thanks for having me. Beautiful day outside. Fortunately, it's going to snow a little bit later because I'm wearing a jacket, so it doesn't happen very often. Yeah, Discovery jumped all in. Give you a little bit of history, and I want to say that nothing that I've heard this morning so far about this content supply chain has proven false. I have disagreed with nothing that I've heard so far this morning. It's a complicated business. Discovery made a decision back in 2015, I'll say, that by the end of 2017, we wanted to be 80% in the cloud. And that's business systems, that's media systems, broadcast systems. And we've pretty much hit that. We've gotten close as we can. Business systems, you know, I'll say it from my perspective, that's an easy lift and shift, right? Just put all that in the cloud. It's not my stuff. The media stuff, now that's the hard stuff, right? We started with the content chain, right? As Dan said, feeding the beast, as I like to call it. So our content partners, and keep in mind 80% of the content that Discovery receives is from external content providers. They have been sending us content, and I think Eric from Dillette said something this morning about you know, how much, he asked the question, how much of that's accurate? And the answer is amazingly very little. Very little of that content that our content providers, or our production partners, I should say, were sending us was accurate. We went to a file-based delivery, and I use air quotes on that because they were files being delivered to us on LTO tape with a metadata package attached to it, so it was file-ish delivery. And we would get that, plug it in, and bring it into our system, and it would be wrong. The naming would be wrong. They couldn't even name the tapes right, the physical LTO tapes right. Files were wrong. And so we made the leap pretty quick. I'm making it sound easier than it was, to bring in the content through the cloud, deliver it directly into AWS in our case. We do checks. We name it for them, so we took that out of their hands. We do checks to make sure that what they delivered is a file and it meets our specifications. Now it's in the door, in the system, and it's in the cloud. So just briefly talking about the rest of the content chain, so now what do we do with it? We check it, we need to do an auto QC. We just launched that this year, auto QC, where we bring down a proxy, but the mezzanine asset stays in the cloud. That mezzanine asset, we check the proxy. We do our automated checks through partners that we use, a slew of them, most of them in the room. And then we check the content through an automated process, and then bring it down to check it via proxy on-prem, double check the metadata, send that metadata back up, and associate it back with the mezzanine. The rest of the bits in the middle, as I call it, in the content chain are a little difficult, the edit and that sort of thing. That's a 2018 project, and I get to do that next. But really, we're supposed to be talking about the playout, linear playout. So that kind of talks about how we got to where we are and why we're playing out of the cloud. One reason is Discovery is very global, as you can imagine. Don't need to talk about that. The number one thing right here, this is the biggest point, and I wanted to touch on this the most. We've used the term a lot this morning about agility, and I wanted to kind of touch on what we mean by that. The ability for us to play out of the cloud provides us a lot of agility. I think the AWS folks talked about it quite a bit. It allows us to spin up new code, right? We have code in your traditional playout chain. How easy is it to test new code from the vendor? You have a utility chain, you put everything through there, you spin it up, see what works, what doesn't work. It's a little bit easier, in my opinion, to do with the cloud platform in AWS. We spin up an instance, match it, put on new code. It attaches to our existing system in QA or in production, and it works or it doesn't. We can analyze it, see how it works, pass it forward, right? Spin it down if it doesn't work, spin up 2 more to test scale, whatever we need to do. The agility of the platform is really the number one thing. The agility is the time to launch as well. So I think we touched on this earlier today as well, so I'm repeating a lot of what was said before, but there's a slide on this as well. The traditional linear chain, I don't think I need to tell many of you this, has a lot of pieces and parts, a lot of hardware in your facility. Testing all of that and spinning up a new one, someone addressed this before, it could be 6 months. We used to tell our networks, oh, you want to spin up a new Animal Planet chain? All right, well, that's going to be, I could probably get the hardware in place in about 4 months, assuming there's power and cooling available to us, and rack space. Don't forget about rack space. Spin it up, and then we have to get the vendors in here, professional services, for each one of the pieces of the chain to come in, configure it, make sure it's correct. Hopefully the hardware matches what exists on the platform, so the codes match, and then we start the ad sales and the automation bits for that. Now we're talking about weeks. It's actually a problem. We had this problem very recently where someone asked if they could spin up a new chain and how long it would take. And we said, well, cost minimal. We could probably spin it up on our existing platform. If I said a week, I'd probably have enough time to make it happen. They're like, whoa, 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 whoa. No. We don't say a week, we say months, because we got to get the ad sales, we got to get the automation going, all the traffic systems and stuff like that. We're going to need about 6 months. So now they're no longer waiting on the engineering team, which is a good place to be. I like that, right? That's good. So, I think to me, it's fairly obvious, the agility of the cloud-based system, but, we could talk about it more too. We touched on security a little bit this morning, and the comment was made, and I agree with this wholeheartedly, that the cloud is inherently secure. This was probably one of the hardest things for a lot of our team to buy in, and I'll admit I was included in that. It just seems like, oh, it's a public cloud, it's not secure. And it seems to me that I'm not a security expert by any means. My company will tell you that. But it seems to me that, the on-premise, we had all of our service passwords and service accounts, and everything had to start talking to each other. By the time we were 2 years in, everything needed to talk to each other. Inherently in the cloud, everything is locked off from each other. You have to purposefully give access to each little bit and bob, as I like to say, for each piece. And so nothing will talk to anything until you tell it to do so. And that natively is secure. Plus, it's their business to be as secure as possible, government-wise and that sort of thing. So it really has proven to be a non-issue, even though we thought that was going to be the biggest issue of all of them. The mobility and connectivity, I kind of touched on all that. It's getting, once our content is up in the cloud, which, as I said before, our new incoming media already there. We moved our archive, and I won't say that was easy, but we got our archive. Hopefully James won't yell at me about using the term, but we got our existing tape-based archive up into the cloud as well. It's there. It gives us now a global footprint where every piece can access that content. And the interoperability, So now our linear chain, we can use that mezzanine content or that air content, the air masters, to feed OTT, VOD, anything. It's all there. We just add, but again, simplifying it, but we can just add hooks into this system and play it out. into whatever platform we need. There's transcoding available. We make it into what we need. The metadata is there. We have all the information, the data, dynamic ad insertion. These pieces are all a part of it. So this was sort of our approach. I kind of talked about it. What can we get up into the cloud? I already talked about the incoming content. That's already being delivered there. The technical evaluation, done. This is proxy-based. It's proxy-based and arguably AI-based, computer-based. Storage is inherently in the cloud. Post, not quite there yet, working on it. Talk about it next year, probably. Transcode, plenty of vendors transcoding in the cloud today. We have our mezzanine file set, put it up in the cloud, and we know what we want to make. Sometimes it's a port of an on-premise transcode platform and workflow. Most of the time, it's build it new and send it up there and transcode. That includes arguably time compression, right? We can do that in the cloud too if we want. And then we get into the playout, right? That's what you want to hear about. So currently discovery in the US, I already talked about all this stuff. Currently discovery in the US, if you watch Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, I know you all watch TLC, all these channels, if you watch that in the US, you're watching it playing out of AWS today, right now. We're 100% playing out of the cloud in the US. That's a main and backup out of our main is in US VA in AWS, and our backups are all in Ireland, and we're in the middle, literally in the middle of launching all of our European channels. We just finished the UK origination, and we're moving on to the rest of Europe, which is the opposite. It's natively in, or the mains are in Ireland, AWS Ireland, with the backups playing out of the US. So while we're all talking about whether we should do it or whether we can do it, it's important to know that it's done. We're doing it. Discovery is doing it. I mean, this is Discovery Channel, our flagship network, playing natively out of AWS, 100%, 24/7. Should have been able to pull it up now. That would have been smart. So there's another factor that I wanted to talk about that goes back to that agility that's important, and that's now the monitoring. So for the European channels, well, now I don't necessarily need to monitor it in Europe, right? I could pull those feeds back from anywhere. If they're natively playing out of the cloud, that cloud is global. I could put the eyeballs to watch those feeds anywhere I want. And not only that, but with some of our partners like Evertz, we can increase the ratio of eyeballs to network. We put in a monitoring by exception system. So now instead of one person looking at 12 networks and going, I think I saw something on TLC West, we could say, all right, system, you tell us what's wrong. You alert me to the problem. And now my viewing ratio goes from 12:1 to 24:1 to 30:1 and beyond. And so it changes the dynamic of how we do TV. These are all the tools, by the way, that we use for monitoring the system in conjunction with each other. I broke it, Dan. All right, it's you. Before I hand it back, though, I want to just talk about some quick stats because, we're all kind of stat geeks, right? So like I said, today, all of the US networks are playing out of the cloud. That's 70 streams natively. If you include mains, backups, West Coast delays. Internationally, we're currently at 29 services playing out. At the end of my project, which is rapidly approaching, we'll be at 112 streams. We've sent so far in the US 1,300, well, we're sending 1,300 MXF files a week to the cloud. We have over 28,000 program files registered in our mediator system, close to 10,000 promos already, just in the US. And there was a question about this earlier. In 2017, we did 43 hours of live content out of the cloud. And in 2018 already, just in the US, we've done 113 hours live. Over 150 total, just in the US. Dan? Want the clicker? The laser?
I want the laser. So somebody earlier on was talking about the technology stack, I think way at the beginning. And you start with kind of these high-level diagrams. There's cloud compute, then there's a connection, a 10 gig direct connect or whatever else it may be. And then you have your on-prem facility. So you have your compute, your control and monitoring, and then your connection. Fairly simple from that perspective, but there is a ton of things under the hood in that stack that actually make it all possible. Kind of in the cloud and in the discovery case here too. So there's Mediator and Overture. Mediator is kind of the automation and MAM. The Overture Live, the main and backup servers playing in the different regions are kind of the channel in a box entity. And I use the word entity because it no longer is a box. It's just software, microservices. One thing with the cloud, actually, as we kind of went through it, we kind of went, typically in our on-prem IP facilities, we do multicasts. Everything's multicast based because we don't have some of the constraints that maybe you have in the public cloud. But public cloud is all unicast. So how do you take your multicast environment for control and monitoring and maybe final emission encoding or whatever else and bridge the unicast world to the multicast world? That's where some of these technologies come in terms of IPXs and EXEs for doing network address translation to make unicast, multicast, unicast to make those flows seamlessly between on-prem and the cloud. And a big footprint in terms of control and monitoring. The monitoring by exception stuff, the ability for operators to do things manually that they do today on-prem, but still do it with the infrastructure in the cloud. VL Pro, Insight, View, all the things that touch and feel the operation stuff still need to be on the ground, but there's still a large stack of software that's remote controlling those things that are running in the cloud. We talked about hybrid architectures, multi-cloud, and all that kind of stuff. Discovery's a bit of a snowflake in certain aspects. They decided to go all in. We're going all in on the cloud. That's how they got their financial return. They got their operational efficiencies. I'd say they're a leader, maybe not a snowflake, a leader in the whole area. Not everybody is ready to go, right? We talked to a lot of our other large customers, which are large media companies. They kind of go, you know what? We want to start on-prem. And then we want to move things gradually to the cloud as they get more experience. And they're thanking God that Discovery went because they know now it can be done. But they still want to start on-prem and have the consistent software architecture and user interface that can go video appliances, hardware servers because somebody's comfortable with it, private cloud or public cloud. So having a stack that covers the hybrid architecture, on-prem or public cloud, is really, really important to a lot of customers. That same software stack still needs to deliver all the functionality that we need. It's got to go from UHD, all the way down to SD. There's still a lot of SD out there. It's got to support SMPTE 2110, all the way down to compressed streams, MPEG-2, 25, 50 megabits streaming in and out of these channel-in-a-box entities. So whatever you do, you can't forego the fact that you may need to do UHD. You may need to go uncompressed or may need to go compressed. The same software stack has to do everything. This is kind of an interesting one. I probably spent 3-4 years taking all these different things that are in the playout chain and putting them all in a channel in a box. Great, awesome, it's a single server, it does everything. As soon as we get that done, well, guess what? Time to rip it all apart and break it all down into individual services that can be turned on and off. So you got to have all those things in a microservices configurable type approach, whether it be closed caption processing, OP42, OP47, SCSI triggering, up-down cross conversion, file playout, graphics insertion, watermarking for Nielsen or Kantar. All these things need to be services that you can configure in that particular chain and automatically spin up. That's what it looks like when it's all configured. You kind of go left to right. Your live inputs, you can talk a little bit, well, you did talk about lives, yes. Live inputs come in. You've got your traditional A/B master control switcher. We still think about it like this, although they are microservices running in software and a server. Your live inputs, your VANC de-embedding and re-embedding, your audio de-embedding and re-embedding with shuffling and mixing and loudness control, your internal server ports, your storage for graphics and video, your graphics rendering pipeline. All these things need to be there because you want to be able to scale the compute instance to actually what type of channel you're playing out. I thought you were going to talk about this one, but you did a little bit. This is Discovery's architecture in terms of kind of, there is the cloud compute, there's that 10 gig direct connect, and then the on-prem stuff. Rob mentioned there is kind of in region 1, which is in the US, and region 2. There's another, oh, I was supposed to.
No, go ahead.
Who deleted that slide that said transition to Rob?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Just kidding.
You want to take it over from here? Yeah, why not?
Well, no, you drive and then I'll add color.
So the mains are running in one particular region, the backups are running in the other region. There's colo facilities for the 10 gig direct connects, where you have main and redundant connections to each colo facility, because you could lose one of these colo facilities, but you still want to be able to get your stream where you want it to go. So there's one of those for the UK, one of those for the US, and both of those guys can see either stream, because Rob mentioned earlier on, doesn't matter where maybe you do the control monitoring. You could do the control monitoring for the US out of the UK, or the UK out of the US. Once you're in the cloud, you get that agility for IP connectivity. Doesn't matter where the operations staff is, because you've got access to the streams.
And there's so much agility in here, you know, even just in the regions, talking about availability zones, you know, region 1 availability zones, we spread it all across. And, you know, we were smart about it, about the mains and the backups and the plus ones, where they're going. And in region 2, you know, across different availability zones, there's certain inherent or guaranteed redundancy built in there. And then we built in redundancy with the networking.
Sorry.
Thank you. Networking, and then the colos, you can see there's connectivity across them, and each pipe, you know, even coming into different sides of the building, because, you know, we've all seen a backhoe take out a network, but it's so much redundancy up here that, you know, we're looking at that going, do we need it? Do I need DR? What do I need for DR? Maybe I could put the DR in a different cloud or a different location somewhere, and get it off of premise. But, you know, maybe that's next. There's a lot of flexibility there. Hear you. All right.
Near you, doesn't matter. I could do it. One of the things that kind of we found in the cloud is actually, one of these things is you don't know what you don't know until you get there. When we're going to doing this IP streaming in the cloud, we kind of went, why are we getting video breakup every 60 seconds or every 5 minutes? And it took us a long time to figure it out until we actually turned on some things in terms of network monitoring that Rob mentioned. As it turns out, it rains in the cloud sometimes. And sometimes it actually thunderstorms, mostly around 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. for some reason, strangely enough. So what we actually found out is, you know what? Okay, there is packet loss in the cloud, so you've got to be able to account for that stuff in terms of having a robust transmission mechanism. Even between EC2 and EC2 instance, there's still a network in the middle. You can drop packets if you go from one instance to the other. So taking care of a lossy network and robustly streaming your content through that network, even in the cloud, is really, really important. So basically, we had to put in a process where we say, okay, you know what? These guys need to talk to each other. They need to make sure that they're robustly streaming the content even between those two instances so that they actually, no, VPN, thanks very much. They can talk to each other robustly and do it in a way that's actually low latency as well, because that actually, remember, we're doing live in the cloud with Discovery as well as other customers. So low latency when in those connections is also really, really important.
It's a modern day forward error correction, you know, with buffering for packet loss. But there are, you know, this was the tools that we put in place, probably modern, we're getting to a place where we could probably start looking at alternatives as the cloud technologies become more robust. We can start to look at different ways of correcting that packet loss, packet drops, or bypassing it. So, and that, again, that's where the agility and the flexibility of the cloud comes in, where we can spin something up to test out these new tool sets and see if we can make it work, and then start to lose some of the software packets in the middle and start removing some of that latency. This for me?
That's for you.
All right, what are we talking about?
Resilience.
I just talked about that.
We did talk about it a little bit. I guess the one thing that we actually did is, even within a particular region, I don't think Jamie didn't talk about it, I think, to a large degree. Even within a particular region, there are different availability zones within a particular region, so that if you actually lose one particular AZ, you don't lose everything in the particular region. So we spread out not only the database for the MAM and the automation, but also the channels across these different availability zones, so you still have resilience. If a particular building in somewhere or other takes a hit, you still got AZ1 and AZ2 and AZ3 taking care of the other streams. So it's not all in one. If you lose a region, you don't lose everything. You put in that resilience. You design for robustness and failure as you go through the process. So we spread things out across the availability zones within a particular region.
I jumped ahead of you on that.
That's okay. And the other thing that actually was kind of interesting, Rob can talk about how it works operationally. But when you go from region 1 to region 2, you're going across the pond. There's latency in the network there. So how do you handle your main to backup failover in a resilient way that actually minimizes any air impact? So way down here, when we brought things back down, I guess Discovery wanted to keep their traditional encoding for financial reasons, just because short term. So we had to bring those streams back down, do a unicast to multicast conversion, and put it into what we call an advanced clean switch, which actually looks at a UTC timestamp, and each one of the streams has a time-based buffer in each one of those streams to auto-align them, do the AVM monitoring to look for frozen or black or pixelation or whatever else, and switch over to the backup stream. Even if there is an issue, switching it before that issue hits air, because there's an embedded buffer within that clean switch. Off it goes to the final emission encoder, stat mux, and satellite uplink.
So one of the things that Discovery didn't want to, we didn't want to bite off more than we could chew at this point. So we wanted to stop here with the cloud playout and not try and tackle our distribution at all. The idea was we get it to a point, even at baseband, where we can just, again, simplifying, just do a patch, right? Switch right before the distribution encoding, before the stat mux, and then we don't have to even let our affiliates really know what's happening. Of course we did, but we didn't have to. So all of this is, some of this is on-prem, and then right before, like Dan said, we have the ACS switch, main and backup, make sure that's in alignment, catch any last minute errors. We can bring this back into our monitoring by exception, and then hand it off to make sure what we're giving distribution is good, and the affiliates are none the wiser. They get their signal just like they did before. But don't think that that's not on that circle that I showed earlier. Don't think that that's not going to be in the chain, that we're going to, at one day, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, one day I'm going to be able to give my affiliate an IP address and say, you want Animal Planet? This is your IP address to go get it.
So you think you probably already talked to these slides to a large degree.
Yeah, I think I jumped ahead, like I said.
Yep. So big thing, obviously, for Discovery in the UK, in that all their US networks have transitioned. If I got the numbers right, Rob, tell me wrong. It's like 50% of Discovery's worldwide, a third of Discovery's worldwide revenue, and half of their North American revenue. So this is not an experiment. It's not a prototype. This is live, on air, 7/24 with their premium network. So if anybody watches TLC or Discovery or Oprah Winfrey, they're up there. You're watching from the cloud.
One other interesting thing, I didn't include it in my stats, but our Hardin facility in the U.S. for origination is in Sterling, and it used to be for each one of these channels, it would be 4 racks for main and backup for a single channel. And now for our entire US platform, we're at, I think, I'd like to say 11, but I think people have corrected me and said 13 racks total for the entire US platform. There's cost savings right there. Those are easy numbers, right? That's, we're talking about cooling. Very few servers in those racks, by the way. A few, but not many. So talk about cooling, power, space is at a premium for those of us that are now in real estate companies that we thought we were in media companies. But you know, that there's inherent cost savings right there, not to mention the refreshes and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the only thing I want to maybe was highlight on this particular slide, I think we talked a lot about it already. Yeah, this includes live, and actually Rob and Brenton and John actually said, okay, what was this, November, I think, was when Barrett Jackson
Yeah.
was? They said, okay, we're going to do our first live event. I went, okay, perfect. It's going to be 2 or 3 hours game, football game or soccer game or whatever it was. They go, nope, we're going all weekend. We're going all live. We're going to do Barrett Jackson, who, if you aren't familiar, is the car auction that goes between like Vegas and Phoenix and Florida and stuff like that. It went all weekend long. Like, it was not a small live event. It's working at scale for extended periods of time. And this is my favorite car. This is a Dodge Challenger Hellcat that went for $825,000. Serial number 1.
You can buy a lot
707
of those with
horsepower.
their cost savings. No, just kidding. We also did on that Barrett Jackson 6 hours of live on the first afternoon with a quick turnaround. So immediately when it ended, we started replay.
This goes a little bit to the control and monitoring and kind of what the operations staff sees. So Rob can talk about, this is the actual picture from the control room, so I'll let you talk to it.
I thought you were going to talk to it. So yes, this is what we were talking about, eyeballs, you know, number of eyeballs to stream. So our operators have multiple screens in front of them with the big monitors behind, traditional master control room. But now our monitoring ratios are going up quite a bit, right? We can look at the schedules, we can look at monitor by exception, the operators can make changes, adjust as needed, bring in content promos that need to retime the schedules.
And I think this one actually, at least for me, in terms of the way Discovery actually architected the whole room and the monitoring kind of situation, the operations staff doesn't really know what's under the hood, nor should they, right? There's the main and there's the backup. Those are, if you can't read it, those are the 2 feeds in particular. That could be in the equipment room. Underneath, they don't realize this is halfway across the world in the cloud streaming IP, but the operations staff doesn't even know. That's really, really powerful from a change management perspective. They get scared if they think it's in the cloud, it's IP. It's don't worry about it. It's going to be the same control and monitoring interface that you know and love and have for years.
Love is a strong term.
I love you, Rob.
Guys, give me 1 second. We're running long, but I think this is
sorry.
too important to stop, and I know you have a lot of questions too, but lunch is also served. So for those of you who are on-premise only guys and hardware guys,
Stand in the
lunch
way
is
of
back
lunch.
there. For those of you who are in the cloud or migrating, stay in here, and we'll keep going, and we'll keep asking questions, all right?
Okay, we'll accelerate then.
No, take your time. You know, you're doing pretty good getting 3 hours into 45 minutes. 3 years into 45 minutes, actually.
There you go.
You getting paid for this?
I'll talk to this a little bit. So Discovery's lives are, I would say, they're live events. I wouldn't say they're sports live events, where you have a regular structure of break, game, and there's last-minute changes to the NFL or the hockey or whatever. Somebody calls up and says, the first drive went long. Delete break 1, we just lost it. Put it at the end, we're going to call it back, we're going to insert it. It's down to the last minute. So we've done a ton of work in terms of a HTML5 user interface to focus on live edits and quick break management, even if something is running in the cloud. So I won't get into it too much, but multi-copy, multi-paste across regionalized feeds with dynamic break management is absolutely key if you're going to do any kind of live sports event, and that has to translate from on-prem and even into the cloud. So we spent a lot of time doing that. I won't be in the way of lunch too much more. So yeah, all that kind of stuff, live in the cloud is real, including things like for what you want to do for NFL and NHL and stuff like that. Branding. Why do we spend so much time on branding as an industry? Well, It's all about viewer retention, building the brand, retention in the program, retention in a channel, and retention across a channel. That's why we do branding, right? There's a business reason behind it. A lot of concerns actually early on when we started this project with Discovery is, what graphics can I do in the cloud? What am I going to give up because I'm doing in the cloud? Am I going to lose the complex graphics that I need to actually do? The answer is no. Because EC2 instances have very powerful GPUs inside of them, you get a ton of graphics capability out of them, and you can do the things that you have traditionally done just as well as on-prem as in the cloud. So maybe this will be the last thing. I'm just going to roll a video, let it go through just to show, and these are a lot of the Discovery kind of examples. What kind of graphics can you do in the cloud? I could talk about it for hours, but probably a 3-minute video will probably sum it all up. And we'll take the audio if we can, yeah? So I'm just going to let it roll through. You'll see the graphics on the bottom and a description of what's going on in the top.
Dark days of summer are here. It's an all-week-long family dive into the world of these fantastic creatures.
We're out here all the time. We've never seen it before.
Goblin sharks, alien sharks, hammerheads.
If I could build a custom truck or a custom dream truck, it would probably just be a rat rod of some sort. Low and slow is my way to go. I'm more about design and artistic fabrication, stuff like that. I figured if it's fast, I'm just going to get in trouble or I'm going to break it.
If I could build a dream truck, I think it would have to be an old rat rod, maybe an old International.
This particular one is actually is kind of the complicated one that we typically call hot starts in the industry, where you start the second program before the first program actually finishes, and then you transition that secondary video to be the primary video. A lot under the hood to actually make that happen in a seamless way, including the as runs and those
We have
being
a
correct.
vision for the future. A world without accidents. To get there, we're advancing safety.
I had that experience.
And this is because I have a 15-year-old daughter who watches this inherently and incessantly say yes to the dress.
What they do. We may seem like a rowdy bunch, but we love each other, and I know they have my best interest at heart.
You know, I like this. This is different.
So that should give you a flavor of the graphics that can be done. Anything you do on-prem can be done in the cloud if you do it right with the right technology. And I think that's it.
All right, so we'll take Q&A, and lunch is also served, and the demo room, Carl, is someone in the demo room now? Is it open? Yeah, it's open. And demo room is also open. Let's try to be back, let's say 2:10, and try to get back on schedule, so give us 1 hour for lunch, and then we'll take questions.
Oh, I thought we got out easy.
No.
Oh, okay.
All right, I'm going to start with, you forget easy, I'm going to give you a good one and start with, where's Singapore and all this?
Singapore is still in with EDM today.
Yeah.
They are, well, they were next on the list, but with our acquisition of Scripps, they're on the list. Singapore is on the list, but we will migrate them.
And when you do U.S., is that Latin America too, or is that
Latin America will be pretty soon.
Okay.
So yes, the scale will include Latin America, Singapore coming out of out of our London office, and Latin America coming out of our U.S. office.
So Singapore come out of London, you wouldn't have another node in Asia to be primary?
We might have some of the content live,
Yeah.
and the Evertz ORT and mediator live in a region in Asia. We haven't even looked at that to see where that would live, but it doesn't matter, right? It actually almost makes more sense to, when we move the content, to move it into Ireland and play it out there. Because what we would probably do is keep it in the UK mediator system, and so it makes sense. The connections are already made.
All right, so questions, who's out there?
Yeah. So, Rob, in the in the previous workflow that you used for live, and this may be an Evertz question, a lot of the things that you just showed in that demo would have been known as events, secondary, tertiary events.
Yes.
And in previous ways that broadcast chain would occur, that would actually sort of break or kludge the system. So is what I'm hearing based upon Evertz showing this, that those things are now handled from the cloud and they don't count as secondary events, therefore the system is cleaner from a origination facility standpoint?
Well, I think they were secondary events, and there's still secondary events in the systems, right? Because that's in the automation system. But in the linear chains, when we had it on-prem, we would bypass the chain and bring it into, a subset or a sub-chain, I would call it, where we had the controls like digital effects and MEs and that sort of thing. Bring it in, we could add all those things. We had a live event room where we would reroute the signals that came in, put it in through a full control room, and then send it back into the chain. Dan might want to talk about it more, but the answer is yeah, that's all a part of this system now, all compressed. It's the channel in a box that's not really a box.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's really the live inputs do come into that Overture entity. AB, like program preset coming in. The secondary events for your lives are done inside that ORT as well. So we do the AB switch like you would in a traditional master control switcher inside that Overture, and all the other secondary events you need to do from graphics or AFD or SCUDdy or whatever else are done inside of that. It's just a different source to that entity in that it's coming from live as opposed to the file decoder. So it's 100% live with real-time control of, got to bring this graphic on, got to turn it off, all that kind of stuff. That's done within that Overture entity.
What did you determine was the source of your packet loss between AWS and AWS at 9 and 5 o'clock?
Is Jamie still here?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, it's just the network. The way it's architected, it's not designed for zero packet loss, at least today, and I'm sure they're changing that. But it's between any one EC2 instance and another EC2 instance, there are 42 devices. In the same AZ, in terms of the same availability zone, there's 42 devices or whatever they are. We don't know. It's the AWS magic between an EC2 instance and an EC2 instance. And currently, it's not quite designed for zero packet loss. So I think they're addressing some of those things already, but it's inherent in the way things are connected between cloud compute and cloud compute.
The delivery between that and you guys, is it a dedicated fiber MPLS or is it right off the internet?
Right, so out of the overtures, that if you're talking about coming back down to this on-prem at Discovery, they have 4 10 gig direct connects that are streaming those feeds back down to on-prem, and you have a big router in the middle there to do some stuff as well, right?
Yeah. With a lot of protections in there.
Thank you. I actually had a question on the packet loss as well, or just expounding on that. Did you try, or do you use placement groups? And if you do, did you even see the packet loss within the placement group, or it was just within separate EC2 instances within the same or separate availability zones?
Within groups, within availability zones, and across availability zones, the same thing actually existed, because honestly, the only thing we're streaming is a unicast stream of transport stream from one spot to the other. So it was independent of, it was just there all the time.
Okay. So even do you have placement groups for your EC2 instances, or no?
What do you mean by placement groups?
So
like
a placement
VPCs?
group is an AWS concept. It's basically supposedly high bandwidth connectivity between EC2 instances.
Yes. Yep. Yes.
Cool. Thanks.
How are you guys managing cloud formation responsibilities? Who maintains your cloud formation? Is that in-house? Is it the partner? Is it both? And how granular is it? Is there a cloud formation for spinning up a new channel, or if you needed to spin everything up, can you run a cloud formation script and launch everything in yet another region?
I'll say yes for this presentation. Yeah, the answer is it's all maintained in-house at Discovery. We work very closely with Evert's development teams and project teams to make sure that the scripting's correct, but that's all the responsibility of the Evert's the Discovery, cloud services group to maintain. We template everything, so nothing gets spun up in any of our cloud architecture, whether it's for playout or it's for business systems, without a base template that meets our specifications, has correct identifications. We need to make sure we can identify everything that's in there. And so we're responsible for the cloud formation templates and Terraform templates, but we get a lot of, for the ORTs, they give us the specifications on what to build.
Yeah, so it is very much a shared thing to a large degree. We'll give Discovery what we believe is our golden CloudFormation template. They'll take that. I think you do some other translations on it, and they vet it with their cloud team, so that's their responsibility. And we use ASGs to actually handle redundancy within an individual device. So if an instance fails, the ACO flips over to the backup. The ASG kicks in and spins up a new instance using the CloudFormation templates. Once it's actually up, it then connects up into the mediator brain to get its identity, and it pushes back down its personality. So the spin up is automated, and then the configuration personality, the actual channel, is then automatically pushed down as well. The system starts to automatically cache things to the EBS volume that's attached to the actual storage, and it starts playing out again. So highly automated from that perspective.
First of all, I'd like to put a plea out that all these people in this part of the industry stop using the fake verb architected. It's not a real word. But aside from that,
so can't be responsible for the industry.
No, I know, but we have to start small. If I understand correctly, you moved your assets into storage in the cloud.
That's correct.
All the shows. So how does this affect the local editing people that I know, for example, in Silver Spring, who are still doing reversioning and other kind of editing projects? I know they're not. I know the storage isn't in Silver Spring. People have said, oh, it's out in Sterling. Is it in fact in Amazon? Are they editing, or is it moved back and forth as they work on it?
So that's I talked a little bit about it, and I didn't get into it because we were supposed to talk about linear playout. But the editing piece today is still an on-premise thing. So currently, yes, our content's delivered to Amazon, and we do a lot of processing. And once we know it's good to go, and we want to do creative promotional editing or cut to clock or reversioning internationally, we bring it on-prem, right? Currently, that on-prem, to answer specifically your question, that on-prem storage, our Avid environment, the storage and the servers live in Sterling, Virginia, and our editors, as you know and love them, are in Silver Spring, Maryland, so 40 miles away. That's as cloudy as we've gotten today. But like I said, by this time next year, I fully expect that will be arguably 100% cloud-based effort. So the content will live in Amazon instead of on edit storage or on our spinning disk on premise. And we will, I'm not going to tell you my secret sauce, but we will be editing still within suites or possibly from our houses, based on cloud-based either proxies or mezzanine files, and then conform. And then the idea at Discovery is 100% in the cloud.
So guys, thank you very much, first of all, for the presentation. Todd from AWS, I appreciate it. A question, we had a lot of discussion around multi-cloud strategies and where those were. My question is, did you guys consider a multi-cloud strategy when you were first looking at moving to AWS or any other cloud vendor? And if you have a multi-cloud strategy currently in place, what is it, and if you are? So just curious if you could address that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Yes, the original design was multi-cloud, right? That was our redundancy plan, was, all of our content not living in a single in a single environment for your production and ours, right? That is still on the table. We had some speed to market things that we had to accomplish that kept us from attacking that as a priority. That doesn't mean that our entire environment end-to-end is not multi-cloud or will not be multi-cloud. And yes, we have the same concerns that were brought up before about getting these, rich media files across from cloud to cloud. But if you do it in a smart way that makes sense, that's monetized correctly, it's a business proposition about how to do it. Who does what best? To be honest, if you don't mind me saying, you brought it up. The original intention was to be so multi-cloud that the cloud environments would compete against each other for things like egress costs and storage costs. And we still expect that that will start to happen. And we want to be in a place where we can port these giant stores of data, metadata, the data lake, as Dan likes to say, the metadata, the content itself, to wherever it makes the most sense. Whoever has the best processing, the quickest processing, and the cheapest storage and processing costs and that sort of thing. That's our goal. And we think between the cloud vendors, third-party vendors, and the team at Discovery, we'll be able to get there in the next few years.
Yep. And from our perspective, there's two kind of prongs to the way actually we want to handle the multi-cloud kind of thing. Because we do things that are actually, to be perfectly honest, they're all on-prem. Some customers aren't even interested in the cloud for particular reasons. So everything that we do, and talking about kind of the lowest common denominator to a degree, that has forced us to actually say, you know what, we're not going to use DynamoDB. We're going to have our own database embedded in the architecture and in the product because we need to run on-prem, period. We don't have access to more advanced tools, blah, 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 blah. So we need to have the software stack all the way from MAM, automation, playout, running in an on-prem environment, self-contained. But where it makes sense, say, you know what, okay, we want to take advantage of the AI stuff, for example, recognition and stuff like that. You know what, if you think smart about it, you know, I send my low-res proxies up, I get the metadata back down, or store it in S3, it doesn't really matter. I can still access S3, and other cloud guys can actually access S3. So if you think about what you want to do and the things that are really, really valuable, it's not that hard to come up with a multi-cloud strategy that uses the bits and bobs from individual ones in the way that makes sense from a business perspective.
And to add to that, the more people that do it, the better it is for all of us, at least from my perspective.
Having in a previous life been the person who was responsible for Discovery's raw footage library and masters library 20 more years ago, I got to ask this question, being the archivist. What happens to, after you do your playout and everything, what's happening to the raw footage library, the raw masters library? Is that eventually going to be in the cloud? What's going to happen going forward, as things are no longer stored on-prem? What's going to happen to all of that?
That's a great question. So this is a very large conversation. Probably will go past lunch, which I'm not going to do. But, so if you look at a show like Deadliest Catch or Discovery, they shoot, I think it's like 1,000 to 1 or something ridiculous of like the Bering Sea at night, So that's right. Yeah, there's a lot of content that comes in. So the camera masters, I guess the quick answer will be we are going to, yes, the plan is today they come in and they sit on a pallet of tapes that sit literally in an archive, like a Raiders of the Ark, Raiders of the Ark style.
I remember we were in New Jersey.
Yeah, exactly. So being a cloud company, we don't want to do that anymore. Cloud company. So what we want to do is put it in the cloud, but we don't need all of that footage. So we're working as part of our global specs to get select reels, stuff that's useful that we can honestly monetize and bring that in, and then 100%. We bring it in, we register it. That's where the AI comes in. That's where the machine learning comes in. tell me what I have. Because to be honest, even if the production companies told us what we have, would we believe them anyway? I mean, no, not about them, but about us. You know, we may be a little more selective. So, you know, cat. Oh, that's a tiger. Yeah, arguably a cat, but it's a tiger. So the idea is long term, yes, we want it to be in the cloud, but we don't want all of it. We want the right stuff. And so we do have that middle ground of trying to figure out what that means.
So are you thinking that in the future you're going to have a combination of physical media sitting somewhere that would be long tail monetizable? Tim, sorry. Versus what sits in the cloud?
Yes, although I don't know, you know, because to your argument, what do you do with those boxes of tapes that are sitting there in 150 years or 20 years? You know, 150 years is not my problem. So hopefully, so it's your problem. So the answer is the long tail, maybe, but if we can do a multi-cloud architecture, then I can balance it across multi-clouds and make sure that I have the tools to recover it. And as these AI tools, machine learning tools come about, I can really utilize it, move it around as needed, and use it.
And I'm sorry, my last question is, hey, you don't have the microphone. Are you thinking they're going to be separate SLAs from the ones you've done for what you've done already?
Separate SLAs for
the archival?
Yes, there's no question that there will be.
And what we've seen with some other customers at the same time, again, large media companies, they are using S3 obviously for the nearline kind of stuff. Glacier ends up being the equivalent, at least short term, for the LTO. So we push a lot of stuff based on policies off to Glacier or whatever else. And I'll be perfectly honest, just like Discovery, probably the other large media companies are still working through what the long tail actually is. And where I actually see it going right now is actually kind of the multi-cloud thing that we just talked about. The long tail, there is a battle to say, okay, who's going to take care of that? And I will move things around from long-term storage in the cloud between providers to actually get the best bang for the buck.
That's where we've also been part of those conversations.
Right.
First of all, thank you very much for taking the bleeding edge. Somebody had to do it. And I appreciate some of the effort that goes into doing so and some of the very sticky problems that you had to address in doing so. Having done some experiments myself, I realize there are things that you don't know till you realize you don't know them.
Yep, absolutely.
So as far as an architecture point of view, is there anything in the secret sauce that you ended up actually having to have hardware hosted by AWS that I couldn't just say, hey, spin this up? Is this really everything that's in AWS, is it truly cloud services every bit?
Everything that's in AWS is truly cloud services and arguably agnostic cloud services. There's on-prem components that we talked about, right? There are pieces and parts that we still, especially to get to that baseband handoff to distribution. But yeah, it's all.
And is there anything that you ended up pulling back after realizing we aren't going to get there? I got to do this on-prem that you did not originally plan on doing.
I think so.
I don't think so. Actually,
Nielsen was the biggest scare, I think.
That's always a fun one.
Yeah, right.
I think honestly, it goes to kind of the power of the cloud to a degree. I think there are probably a couple instances where we kind of went, you know what? We're targeting this instance size to go and do this particular feature or function. And you say, you know what? We actually need a bit more CPU or we need a better GPU. Okay, you know what? We're going to bump up the instance size. Done. Yeah. That was probably the biggest bump to a large degree.
I agree.
Half of that was probably also driven by the fact that there is life cycles of instances even within AWS. So you're on a G2 instance. Guess okay, you know what? G2s are going away. Everybody's got to move to G3. So it's a natural part of the evolution anyway. So that kind of happened in parallel. But in terms of kind of, oh shit, we thought we could do this, we just can't. No.
But to the point we were making earlier, those changes in instance types and architecture in the cloud, they're so much easier to do than an on-premise hardware solution, on-premise servers. You know, when you have to upgrade the OS or upgrade, you know, like the size of the GPUs or the storage size. Storage size is a really easy one. That's like just in the CloudFormation template. But some of the other ones are pretty easy. You spin up another one in the auto scaling group and see if it plays out in your backup chain, and if it goes to black, you don't use it. You go backwards, and if it plays out, then you keep an eye on it for a little bit, and then you're good. Again, a little simplified.
There's a lot that we take for granted with all of this extreme abstraction in the cloud. And I know a couple of years ago, S3 had a pervasive and long outage. In your designing of architecture of the system, how much have you taken into account things that are sort of extremely catastrophic things that could happen, like a pervasive S3 outage across multiple regions, cloud formation not running? Sort of what is the ultimate OSP, the oh shit plan of, well, we still got to send stuff up to the satellite.
It's just like an on-premise, a power outage in our facility. We've covered that as much as we can. We have redundant regions, we have redundant availability zones. That's why on that one drawing, there's still, I won't go to it, but there's still DR. That's the shit plan, because there is still a little bit, we haven't seen that again, but there is still a little bit of nerves around that and around that possibility. So we don't want to lose that revenue, of course.
There's that trust factor of all of these things are being done right by the cloud provider.
But it's a business, right? And so I could, we're working.
Them doing it right a lot more than I try.
Well, there's that, and then yes, I could protect it to the nth degree and have 4 times redundancy, but there's a cost associated with that. And so what's the risk factor? Someone above my pay grade made the choice of where our level of risk to cost is, and it was right around, we haven't gotten rid of the DR yet. So that's where it is.
I think, honestly, it's a really good question. I say this every time I have a cloud engagement. Just because you're in a cloud does not take away your responsibility to do resilient design, just like you do in your own data center. So you talked about the S3 outage. Discovery thought about that, Kenny, and went, you know what? That AWS Region 1 and Region 2, we cross-replicate the content across S3 regions, so the backups have access to the same content that the mains do. So there's cross-region replication of the content. Main and backup against a different region. Redundant colo connects to the colos down, and redundant connections down. Every single part of the design has been done resiliently, just like you would your own data center, right? And probably it was thought about way earlier in the process, just because it was new and it had to be done, right? Sometimes DR and resiliency is a second thought in some designs. It was thought about way up front. Every single spot seemed to have the right resilient design.
And with a 100% regional outage, there's still just inherent in the design with Evertz, there's cache content on each ORT. So, we lose connectivity and are completely blind. Content's still playing out as scheduled for, 24 hours, which, that gives us enough time to figure out, to get all hands on deck, right?
So have you seen any cost savings from moving to this model yet, or is that still in the future?
It's well, I talked about the rack space, right? So there's power and cooling. Overall, globally, for the business systems, absolutely. For the playout systems, we had to get a little fat to get skinny, and we're just starting to slim down, start to get our summer bodies, I guess. So I don't think anyone wants. No, we'll leave that. So we're starting to get skinnier again, but we're still learning as we go. So to be honest, for the cloud playout, we probably haven't seen any of the cost savings, but there's a couple factors that we had. We were in a refresh cycle anyway. We had to do this. We were end of life, so we have to balance that against if we put an on-premise linear playout platform on premise. What are those numbers look like versus going to this? Our hand was forced to a degree.
Okay.
Did we miss lunch?
No. Have you looked at launching any new channels that are OTT only now that you have a cloud playout?
Yes. That was one of my agility notes that I forgot to mention. But that's what's beautiful about it. I have all my content up there. I can spin up ORT and say, this is the Shark Week channel, right? And it could be 100% OTT for a week, 2 weeks. What's Shark Week? 2 weeks. I guess it's a week, right? Shark Week. So for 1 week, spin it up. That's your channel. You could subscribe to it. Of course, we'd make it for free. And then spin it down when we're done. I mean, that's the beauty. It wouldn't be a 6-month chain or a utility chain that I have to utilize with that. I have the content available, put it up, spin it up, someone subscribe to it, create a schedule for it, and it's there. You know, say yes to the dress marathon for Dan's daughter. We could do that. There's all kinds of things we could do with it.
And in the same vein, are there any MPVDs now that we're taking the satellite feeds of your channels that are moving to a direct IP feed from the cloud and not taking the satellite uplink from you? And you're bringing this down and uplinking it from Sterling.
Right.
Would you give a direct IP feed to any of those?
100%. That's exactly what we want to do. I mean, that's really where
That's
that's my really good. Going back to my analogy, you know, that's my beach body there.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Because once I can get rid of those satellite costs, you know, that's where the real true savings are. And we're getting to that point.
Can I tell you how much John said he'd save a year to me when he would do that?
You could say it.
He said he'd save $250 million a year once he gets off the satellite.
It's expensive.
You know?
And to be honest, you know, I was talking about this earlier with Vince, that, you know, it's not going to be all at once. You know, we'll get the Comcasts, the Verizons on board pretty quickly because they're looking to do that too.
Has anybody done it yet?
They just want to subscribe to it.
An IP feed as opposed to a satellite feed from you?
One of the things that we're waiting on that hasn't 100% developed is the MUX in the cloud. It's getting there, but I don't, you know. Maybe someone will hand me their card today, but we don't have 100% of the MUX factor there.
We have had one smaller customer with less distribution or less IRDs picking up the signal. One smaller customer absolutely 100% moved from that satellite-based distribution to an IP meet-me pickup.
It's some of the challenge is some of the smaller affiliates is what I was trying to say before, that, you know, we don't want to put them out, you know, we don't want to make them change their infrastructure today.
Anybody else?
Just one follow-up on that. You said the MUX isn't there. Do you need the MUX? You need coding.
Yeah. Well, it depends, right? It depends on how we want to distribute it. We could do it, you know, we could do it direct. We do that a lot in the UK for European channels, is direct to the affiliate and they pick up a single signal. We could do we don't necessarily need a stat MUX. That's how we would do it if we were emulating the satellite to the end, but it's not satellite. So, what's that?
Is it Elemental your MUX?
Elemental?
Yeah.
Today, no. It's on-prem. Our MUX is on-prem. It's not Elemental.
They have a stat MUX, though.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's it. And
thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lunch is still served. Thank you, Grass Valley, for a wonderful lunch. And we'll see you back in half an hour, 2:10.